already suspectful.
Welcome to another episode of You Already Successful. You, yes, you, right now. I'm your host, Roland Walker. For those who haven't seen the trailer yet or don't know about the show, check the trailer out. But the message here is that you are truly already successful by definition. So shedding more light on both definitions of successful to help motivate and encourage you to keep climbing your own ladder. So that's why we're here. I'm excited about today's special guest. He's someone I recently met, actually after seeing one of his hilarious videos first online, and I showed it to my wife, and then I just reached out to him, and he answered and reached back. Here we are. He is somebody who, the phrase is that there's a lot of truth in the joke. So he has a lot of truth in his jokes and in his reels. So that's what part of what I want to dive into and talk about today. Please help me welcome the Tuff Dad.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. Again, as I said, I just reached out, and to my surprise, you reached back, and I know there's probably that moment where it's like, well, is this guy real, or is it like a bot, or
Yeah.
So we had more conversations, and here we are. So thanks again for taking the time out to be on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So obviously, within the name Tuff Dad, that implies that you're a parent.
Yeah.
Who is Tuff Dad? The person behind the brand.
Let's see. Well, I'm John, Tuff Dad stuff, and I'm a dad. My wife and I welcomed our son in the world. He'll be 3 years old coming up in May, and I'm a stay-at-home parent, and I say that lightly because I also work a full-time job. I'm just able to do it remotely, and he stays home with me. My wife goes off to work every day. So it got a little lonely being around the house by myself with a toddler and a dog. So I created Tuff Dad stuff kind of just as an outlet, creative outlet to share my experiences as being a parent. Like you said, there's a lot of truth in the jokes. Everything that I put up there, it's usually like inspired by a true story that happened to me personally, or a close friend or someone in the family and it's easier to laugh at it than it is to get upset about it. So that's kind of why I created it and why I keep going, because it helps bring the humor into the things we go through every day as a parent.
Yeah, that's awesome. And humor is almost like anybody that's a parent knows, like you have to have some level of it, or else being a parent just is a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So like you have to laugh at certain stuff, otherwise, you're gonna have some challenges. It's funny because you talk about working from home. That's I'm fully remote too. So just for our 9 to 5 jobs, in case they spot this, right? The kids are at bed, so it's literally
right.
like at night, so we're clear.
Yeah.
But I work from home too. My wife, we have a at-home daycare too in the basement, so we have two girls, and we're expecting the third coming in July. No more after that for sure. And congrats to you, by the way, because I know you have another child coming in a couple weeks, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're about 2 weeks out from welcoming son number 2.
Awesome. So, how old is your first child?
He'll be 3 in May.
Okay, cool. Mine's at 2 and 4 right now, so right in that bracket. Okay, cool. And what about your upbringing, your background? Like, what led to and inspired Tuff Dad? It sounds like being remote and kind of like figuring stuff out at home with the kid was a main influence, but you also have a sense of humor, right? And and you also are interested in some stuff, and I could see like the blend of things that you're interested in, like wrestling and things along those natures that you mix together with that. Is any of that connected or related to the background and how you were brought up?
Yeah, I try to a lot of my reels are me doing something and I stitch it in with pop culture things and wrestling, like you mentioned, things like that. It's always something that I'm interested in. I try to use topical things that speak to me, and like you said, my upbringing. I was a child of the 90s, so I was all into WWF and wrestling and the Attitude Era, like times with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and all those guys. So I often use clips from that stuff because it's nostalgic and things that remind me of being a kid, and it's very, on point with being around children and how they behave and the things we go through, that you don't think about when you're a kid, but looking back at it and as a parent, it's much more noticeable. But yeah, definitely a lot of what you see on my page is, inspired by my upbringing and how I try to raise my child, and trying to be the best dad I can be, and showing other people that it can be fun and it's not as hard as people make it out to be sometimes.
Yeah, and so I'll go with that. How you've closed that is perfect because it's not as hard as people make it out to be sometimes. Not to say that it isn't hard, and
Right.
there's some challenges with it. What are some of those challenges, right, from your perspective, and some of those things that a lot of times people might see Tuff Dad, for example, and all of the fun reels and the funny stuff, and think everything is sweet, and not understand like there's some work and some hard times behind that. What are some of the
Oh yeah.
challenges that you've experienced associated with being a parent?
Let's see. Well, some things you don't like think about is just like how you and your spouse will parent as a team and get through different things. And there's a lot of times where you're parenting separately, like while I'm home all day and my wife's at work, you know, we obviously have kind of a game plan on how we're trying to raise the kid and all that. But when you're alone trying to do things and juggle working remote and all this other stuff, some of that sometimes goes out the window. And then, something starts to work for you, if the kid's throwing a tantrum or whatever, and you start um, throw on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or something. And so a lot of people are anti-screen time, but hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And then when your spouse gets home, you're like, so I know you said no screen time or whatever, but I was in a pinch, so we had to
Right.
throw on some Mickey Mouse for a little bit to save the day. The Coco Melon, we went through the Coco Melon stage and all that kind of stuff. But you know, that teamwork aspect and always making sure that you guys are working together, that's a big challenge. And I think the better you can do it, the better off you are, in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, I echo that 100%. Like the plan, having a plan, working together is important.
Hmm.
Kind of knowing that when your spouse is at that approaching that breaking point, and
Hmm.
kind of reading
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sensing those things to know when it's like, all right, you take a breath, or
Yeah.
you take a
Yeah.
step
Tag.
off.
I did that. I did a reel about, the tag team partner. That's like almost every day when my wife gets home from work, I'm like, all right, your turn. Let me take a break. Let me go outside and get some fresh air for a little bit.
Right. That's the one that that's the one that I
Oh
saw
yeah.
first
Yeah.
that I sent to my wife, and then I think what it was is I think you liked it and commented or something on there, and I was like, oh whoa, this guy
Oh yeah.
commented back. So then I reached
Yeah.
out,
I
but
try to engage. I try to be active on there and engage with everybody. I'm
yeah,
just a person too. I think a lot of people get a little too big for their britches and think they're more of like an influencer versus, just a guy making funny videos,
right.
struggling through parenthood like everybody else.
Right. And I want to underscore that, right? Because that's the whole message really of the show is that
Hmm.
a lot of times people might see successful and think about it differently and then feel
Yeah.
disconnected from that and a little bit less than when in fact we're all people. We're all
Yeah.
dealing with some stuff. Successful has nothing to do really with money. Well, that's one of the definitions that society kind of pushes the most. But really and truly, like if you're achieving or have achieved, then that means you're already successful, right? So um, that means we're all crawling and climbing out of it together,
Hmm.
whatever it is for us
Right.
and whatever level we are on. So I'm glad you said that, right? Because I think that's the key message is just to make everyone more relatable, right? I mean, if you even Elon Musk, right? I mean,
Hmm.
if you look at him and think of successful like money and status and that, then you feel a little bit more insecure, right? And
Hmm.
under, like you're underperforming. But if you look at him like a person and a human, then you feel better. And then you realize that, wait, I went through a lot of stuff. I'm figuring out
Hmm.
being a dad. That's a tough thing to figure out being a dad while working from home, while in a marriage and giving, your wife time. And that's a lot there. So if we tap into our own story, which hopefully everybody does, and hearing it from a successful guy that is telling you too, he's kind of struggling and climbing through and figuring it out like we all are. There's motivation to be had from that realization. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
What's the best part, would you say, about being a parent?
It's just, it's the most rewarding thing, and it's the things that you don't even think about that give you that reward. You never think of it, but you created this being, this kid who's now your best friend, and there's nothing you can do about it. He loves you. In my case, my son, you have a daughter, your daughter, they love you unconditionally, no matter what, no matter how much you mess up, they don't care. They just love you so much. And it's that feeling, you could have the worst day, work could just be awful, whatever. And that way the kid looks at you, it all goes away. It doesn't matter. None of the other stuff matters anymore, because that's all that matters. That kid, that look, that bond that you created, that's the best part. And there's nothing else like it. You can't experience it with anything else except that kid.
Yes. Um, Agreed. They can change your day just with a look and a hug and a squeeze.
Hmm.
And they might not even realize what they're doing. It's just they're
Yeah.
so pure and it's your blood and your seed. Like for me, when I first had a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! I had a kid." But as the kid grows, they like grow on you too, and then it's just like,
Hmm.
it's kind of weird to say, but I don't know if I like love my daughters even more now than when they were just first born, because they're like
Right.
growing up. But yeah, like you said, they could cheer you up in an instant, and it's nothing like quite like it. You can't really even describe it fully. And I know there's
Yeah,
people
it's
that
you,
don't want to
it's
have
it's hard
kids.
to come up with the words
Yeah.
to describe it. And if you're someone without kids, I just don't think you can really understand it, because there's nothing else like it that you could even try to compare it to.
Yeah. I recently heard a guy, famous guy, actor. I don't know if you've seen the movie How High.
Yeah.
What's the main guy's name in that?
The
You
Method Man.
no, not Seth Rogen. That's not him. He wasn't How High. It was the other guy that not How High. I'm sorry. I named the wrong show. It's Pineapple Express.
Oh, that's James Franco and Seth Rogen.
Yes. So okay. So
Yeah.
in that he was interviewed and he was talking about, he's absolutely it feels great about he and his wife's decision not to have kids, which is their right? And he started to go down the reasons why. I don't know if you've seen that, because that's been circulating a lot now on social. But
Yeah, it was on what was it, Kelly Clarkson show?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's not wrong for no one's wrong, right? Because everybody makes that decision. So he's not wrong for
Hmm.
how he felt, but I don't know if he can identify with how we feel because he just doesn't have a kid, right?
Right.
So it's not to take away from his comments. It's just to add and underscore like what you said about like you can't really describe it, and if you can't describe it unless you experienced it, it's hard to know what you are missing or not missing, right? So.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a tie I would make just to go with what you said about how special it is.
Hmm.
Um, like again, it's work, but it's special. I call kids like the most beautiful load that you
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
right, like the most beautiful load that you ever will get. Um, okay. Um, so far, what um what phase would you prefer so far? Baby phase, because this is another debate and topic that's
Oh
floating
yeah.
around. Do you prefer baby phase where like they can't really go anywhere or go out of sight on their own, or would you prefer like where they are now with your 3-year-old?
It's funny because we're at, 2 weeks out from baby number 2, and we've been getting the new nursery ready and going through like we kept all his baby clothes and clothes that he's worn up through now, and we've been going through them, and like you pick it up and you're like, I don't remember him being that small. There's no way he was that small. You almost forget. Like it's only been 3 years, but I've forgotten that first year, the tough stuff. I know it was there. I know we were sleepless nights and all kinds of stuff, but I don't remember that well. That what I'm about to get back into in 2 weeks. It's going to come right back to me though, I'm sure. But every day, like new stuff happens. He learns new things. He starts throwing together more words and his sentences start making more sense. And he does something, you're just like, whoa, you're pretty smart, kid. But I don't know if I prefer any stage over another stage because they've all been, memorable and cool in their own ways. I know like before he started walking and really moving around, we had this we called it the octagon. It was um, like a pop-up tent, but without the roof. It had walls, we could just throw him in it. He was in there in this little pen. He couldn't get out. And I would just lay in there with him for like 3 hours, watch a movie or something. And he was just crawling around, playing with whatever toy he had. And then one day we put that thing up. We had company over or something, and it never went back down. And I now I sometimes think about it. I'm like, man, I didn't know that was going to be our last movie we watched together in that thing or something like that. And you start missing those times. So like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say I want that time back because I don't, because I like where we're at now.
Yeah.
Every stage you like just as much as the last. It's hard to pick one over the other. Each one of them, I think, has
Yeah.
special moments that'll stick with you.
And that is probably what led to kid number 2.
Maybe.
Right, because now you get the both best of both. Now you
Yeah.
have your kid where they are, and then you're having a restart. But
Yeah.
no, I'm with you because the time goes by so quick, so quick.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
they say the days are short, but the years no wait, the days are long, but the years are short, something like that.
Hmm.
Where it goes by in an instant, but when you're in it, those nights coming home from the
Hmm.
hospital are long. So yeah, it does go by quick. And I don't know. I mean, I can't really pick one or the other either. Um, and for two people that can't pick one or the other that are having 2 kids on the way, that might
Yeah.
not be a coincidence. But yeah, I do love where they are. My girls are now at their age, and just seeing how they're advancing and
Hmm.
but
They're like becoming little people.
little people.
Yeah.
But they're also really cute when they're babies too.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
like,
And we started looking at some of those outfits, and we're like, oh, I remember when he wore this. It was so cute, and like,
uh-huh.
but he's cute now too. So.
Yeah, right. Um, okay, so I want to talk about some misconceptions of a dad from our perspective. So, like everyone to give us some grace, right? This is just us talking from our perspectives. We're not talking for all dads. We're talking about us being active fathers. Some misconceptions. I'll start off, and then if you have any that come to mind, we can toss them out too. Dads have it easy is one of the misconceptions that I from my perspective that I hear a lot. My take on it, first, again, let me be clear. I think sometimes the conversation goes left because the implication is like we don't have it easy, so that means that we're saying something about our spouse. Not saying
Mhm.
anything disconnecting it from a spouse, right? Because I think it's a challenge collectively for both sides. So I want to tiptoe into this so so I don't get canceled. But so I think the generalization of dads have it easy only accounts maybe for like in comparison to the wife. So for me, my wife probably spends 90% of the day with the kids. And I'm with them 10, maybe 15, 20%. Maybe it's 80-20. Um, and I do the bedtime, bath time every night, and put them to sleep. And we eat dinner and do some games and some stuff together. But that's like to the extent of, for the most part. So if you think about it in that way, it sounds like maybe I do have it easy, right? But
Hmm.
also in that equation, I think just from being a guy and a man and every other thing that we're organizing and dealing with, that adds some more complexity to it. So that is bills and taking care of. I do bulk grocery shopping. My wife does the other grocery shopping too. So I know she's gonna watch this, and just want to clarify. But the just all of the other intangibles that are on top of that, I would say doesn't make it easy. So I don't want to discount the other side, but again, I just want to clarify. I think that is a misconception because it's just assuming that because you aren't with the kids a lot, or even the assumption that you aren't with the kids a lot, right? As a guy, and like you just said, that's not necessarily true and accurate, right? Depending on the amount of time you spend. So I think that's also a misconception that guys are spending the least amount of time um, with the kids. For me, that is true, but for you, that's not. Do you agree with my take? And if you don't, go ahead and clean it up so that way we separate it and that you don't get attributed to what I said.
I mean, I think everybody's situation is different. It's like what I was talking about with your co-parenting. You have your game plan going. It's what works for you guys. If a couple, my wife goes to work every day, do I put that against her? Do I think she spends less time with the kid? No, she goes to work. I go to work too. I just can do it from home. When she's here, she's present with the kid all the time. And we split all the duties that we have taking care of a child. So I think it's just different, couple to couple, parent to parent. I think that the misconception is that it's like pushed in a lot of media and movies and TV shows and things that the dad is not, he's not absent, but he's going golfing or going to the bar with his friends, and mom's stuck at home with the kid while all that's going on. That's more of the common story that's told in movies and stuff. So that misconception is the what people think of when they think of a dad and what dads are doing. But if you're a dad who chooses to be active in the child's life and are there when you can be, then I think you know you don't fit that mold that people commonly think of when it comes to mom versus dad.
Yeah, agreed. Uh, it does depend on the situation, but it sounds like we agree too. Like overall, that misconception for those who think of that is the dad has have it easy. Is that, like you said, it's a split. You work it out in your relationship, and for you, it sounds like same for me. There's a split. Whether it's task duties, including the kids, so it's not just kids alone. It's like a combination of everything, and then you split that. And with that said, and with that split that we're speaking to, um, then by that definition, we don't have it easy. It's about equal, right? So we're both carrying the weight towards the goal. Any misconceptions you've heard of, or anything that popped to mind?
Well, there's just a lot of things that, like, I think it's like if you go and look at memes and whatnot about dads and dad life, it's all about lawns and grilling and things like that. But like me as a dad, I'm not really about that life. Like if you came over here and looked at my yard right now, it's embarrassing how much weeds and dirt and dead spots there are into it. It's just not important to me because I've got so much else on my plate that takes time that gets far, far, far down the list of things to deal with, where you've got the common misconception about dads is they're always out every Saturday morning. They're up at 6 in the morning, cranking up the lawn equipment, working in the yard all day, drinking garage beers or whatever they're doing. Like I hardly ever drink. I'm not really big on that either. I'm more into going to the gym at 6 in the morning before anybody else is up in the house and getting a workout in, coming back home, making breakfast for the family. kind of thing. So that's a big one that I always think of, is the dad life, living that kind of stuff. Like, that's not really what I'm about, and I know a lot of people that aren't like that either.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, right? Because the misconception might imply like a negative connotation, but a misconception could be like that I'm supposed to get up early Saturday morning and cut grass. My grass is
Mm.
ugly, you know. So that's a good one. That is a good one to call out too. I'm sure there's many others, but yeah, I think those are some of the most common. Some of the most common ones. Um, let's see. Do you get overwhelmed any? We talk about all of the stuff that you have going on. You know,
Hmm.
I got a lot of stuff going on my end too. Do you get overwhelmed? Maybe that's some sort of miscommunication or um, um, uh, like a misunderstanding or a disconnect that some people might think that, oh, as the guy, as the dad, you don't get or you always have things together. Do you ever feel overwhelmed or get
Oh yeah,
overwhelmed?
yeah, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, and as a parent, it's hard not to be, because the kid's growing. So you think you got it figured out on Tuesday, then Wednesday comes along and it's a whole new ball game. And so everything you knew on Tuesday, throw it out the window. You got to start fresh and figure this one out now. What's the next thing that's going on? Yesterday he loved macaroni. Today he threw it all on the floor and he only wants applesauce. Who knows? And I've got a work call or whatever. The other night my dog was throwing up. I posted a video today about that one. Um, there's always something else going on. So it's really easy to get overwhelmed, but in 6 months, I'll look back at that and laugh at it. So like in the moment, yeah, I'm overwhelmed and stressed out, but down the road, it's just another step along the way. So I try to keep that in my mind when I'm going through it, to keep me more, in the moment, and keep my lid on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
it's
good.
definitely, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you how you combat that feeling, and you just went right into it, which is all great points, right? It's the same thing. I heard someone say something like, or there's a quote, like, I knew I was in the good old, I wish there was a way to know you were in the good old days before
Yeah,
like they
that
were
was a
gone.
that was a sound going around. I think they pulled that from The Office. It said something. I think it
Okay.
was Andy. Yeah, Andy said
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Something like that.
No, it's so true because it's like that perspective is important too because
Hmm.
what we're complaining about and what we have right now, who knows if when we, fast forward a year or a few, we look back on like how sweet this time was. So like what that
Hmm.
perspective means kind of to settle down, slow down, enjoy the process, organize, prioritize, all of that stuff is important. But um, glad to hear that. Glad to hear not happy that you're overwhelmed, but glad that you also identify with being overwhelmed because I think that is a true thing, especially as a parent. Not only, like you said, the day to day stuff, but also like everything going on in the world. It could be a stressful thing if you go too far down that road to think about future state with your kid growing up in it. So
Hmm.
there's some level of like not overthinking or worrying too much because then you're carrying around more burden. But there's definitely some stress and some overwhelmness that comes with just life in general, and having a kid doesn't make it easier. Though they do teach you a lot of lessons to help kind of get through, and they give you that hug and that extra oomph to get through some of those rough spots too. So um, on one hand, they're a little bit more stress. On the other hand, they help you with stress, and I think the help that they give outweigh the stress that they give.
Oh
Um,
yeah, always.
Can you speak to the importance of having a schedule? Do you follow a strict schedule or do you kind of just go with the flow?
I definitely am not a go with the flow person. My wife is very much so go with the flow. You know, and she tries to kind of bring that into the kid. But I'm very strict. Not strict. I'm just very OCD. I like to be organized. It's how I stay efficient in my day to day. Um, and I think it's important with kids because they have a lot going on. Like they got to nap, they got to eat, especially when they're like in the baby, each age, there's different things going on. They've got, um, and it's, if you don't have a schedule going on with that, your days are so much harder as a parent. You know, we like to try to have them down at like 7. Um, we temporarily thought, let's push it a little bit. Let's try like 7:30, 7:45. And that's not a lot of time, but those 30 minutes that we tried to push, it was like a different kid. It's like, okay, he's overly tired. We gotta go back. We rolled it back. Um, it wasn't worth that. Um, it's crazy that that little bit of time, made him. It's like he flipped a switch, little monster man.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's wild. Like I try to stick to a schedule, and working from home with the kid, it helps me a lot because he's accustomed to it now. So I wake him up, he knows it's time to go eat breakfast. He hangs out for a little bit while I try to shoot some emails or whatever I've got to do. And we play puzzles and whatever. That's the big thing right now is puzzles. Um, and then he knows, like, all right, it's getting ready to be lunchtime, and he starts getting antsy for lunchtime. He tells me it's time to get some oatmeal or whatever he wants to eat that day. And it helps me like with my flow too, because then I know, okay, well, nap time's coming up if we're eating lunch, and then I get to really focus on work for a couple hours while he sleeps. And then he gets up, and then once he's up, I know it's like another hour or so before my wife will be home. So we start kind of getting ready for her to come home and tag, and then it's
That's
back
the
to
video of
it.
you climbing to the door and grabbing the
Yeah,
handle.
yeah. I start listening for the garage door to open or for my Ring camera to go off, so I know she's pulled in the driveway, and I'm like, all right, Mama's home. Time to tag out for a bit.
Oh man, that's so true. I can relate too. It's funny because it sounds like you and my wife have like the similar structure, and then me and your wife are kind of like a little bit more loose. I'm sure she has some structure too, but maybe not
Hmm.
to the level or degree that you have it. And that's me and my wife. And what I've learned is to respect that schedule because there's some benefit for us as parents in there. Because it's like if they go to sleep all the time on time, then after that we have that time. If they
Hmm.
nap in the middle of the day, not only is that nap beneficial for them, but it's very much beneficial for us. Like you said, you start to the freedom that you have during that time. And I think part of the thing that being a parent helps is like you start being very intentional with your time. Like if you know you have an hour, um, if you don't have kids and you have an hour, that's an hour. It's not really any different but when you have kids and you have that hour, it's like I
Hmm.
know exactly what I need to hit, and you
Yep.
hit the ground running. Like the
Yeah.
the head pit hits the pillow, and you're off to the races and knowing what you need
Yep.
to do. And I think it actually makes you more productive having a kid. But me and my wife has also learned to tap into like because it can cause some tension, right, with the different styles, and that's part of just being married, right, and kind of learning how to co-parent and live together with another person. So
Hmm.
what we've learned that I'm sure you've realized and learned and benefited from as well is it's not bad to be different. It's actually there's advantages to being on the same team and having someone who's has a strong offense and someone has a strong defense. Collectively, that makes a strong team versus if we were
Hmm.
both very, offensive. So I think in that way we've learned and if it's I desperately need structure. So she's very strict and structured with everything that we do, which is helpful. But also with life, monkey wrenches get thrown in and then things
Hmm.
go out of whack and not according to plan. And that could drive her crazy. And that's where I kind of step in and live into that
Hmm.
space as well. So um, um, important topic because that is boils in and feeds into like parenting, right? That um, structure that you guys have as husband and wife impacts children, and our kids will benefit from it, right? Getting the best of both worlds and kind of knowing how to
Hmm.
live in both worlds. So that's cool. Um, uh, we talked about how fast time goes and how to like slow down and value time and being in the moment and prioritize everything. How do you fit? Well, I think we probably just talked about it, the structure and how you organize and structure your day. Do you work in time how do you handle even your weekends? Like, what does your weekends look like with the family? And I'm sure you have work and other kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean the weekends when my wife is home, we try to spend a lot of time together as like, just as that family because we don't get that a lot during the week with her at work and then me trying to catch up on work when she gets back home. Or then once we put the kid down, then we actually have, a little bit of time, just the two of us. Um, but the weekends we try to do a lot of stuff together. One thing that my kid is big into right now is going to Target. He just loves going to Target. So most Saturday mornings we get up and go to Target. That's usually the first thing we do. Um, uh, and we're also big nerds. We like to play Pokemon Go. So we do that a lot. And he actually enjoys, like, we'll just ride around parking lots and things around the area. Or we'll go for strolls. And he actually tolerates that quite a bit.
That's awesome.
So that's a good family activity that we do. But that's really what the weekends we just, focus on spending it as a family.
Yeah, that's awesome. My wife loves Target too. So any opportunity she gets, she's like, "Yeah, I need to go check and grab something from Target and come back with all these bags."
Yeah.
And my kids like them a lot, like Target. Target has something about Target. They have a stronghold on on a lot of families. They do a lot of things right. So kudos and shout out to Target. Um, what's the craziest thing your kid has ever done?
Hmm.
Got to pick one out, right?
Yeah. Hmm. I don't know the craziest thing he's done. We've had more recently he got sick. I don't know what it was that he came down with, some kind of stomach bug or something, but we put him down like we do every night, about 7 or so. And then and he's a pretty good sleeper. He'll sleep through the night. We put him down around 7. He plays around in his crib till 7:30, 7:45. He's got some little buddies or whatever, stuffed animals in there with him. And then he's out and he won't wake up till 8 a.m. or so. But this one night he woke up at like midnight and he was fussing, and that's unusual for him. So we went in to check on him and thought, well, let's bring him in our room and see if he'll sleep a little bit or whatever, lay down with us. And almost immediately that we brought him in the room, he throws up
Oh,
in our bed. He throws up in our bed, and I had given him blueberries for dinner, so he was like it was like purple and red, and it was dark in the room, so it was like chunky and red. And my wife was like, "Oh no, he's bleeding," and I was like, "Oh no, he had blueberries." So that it was crazy and gross, but kind of funny. But I don't know what he came down with, like 24 hours, but he didn't go back to sleep that night, so we stayed up all night long with him and just hung out and watched movies downstairs. And he just hung out and he was like broing out just in his diaper, just chilling on the couch. He had like cold rags and a bucket if he had to throw up again. And we watched that was that DC Super Pets movie with The Rock. We watched that, and I don't even remember, but it was just like we just like broed out
yeah,
while he wasn't feeling well. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, you got your best friend
yeah,
for life now, and just moments like that, like, that sounds kind of gross. And if you're not a parent, you're probably like, ew,
yeah,
gross. But like, it was cool. And
yeah.
I'll remember it forever, even though I had to wash my sheets at 2 in the morning and all that. But
That adds to the story, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, maybe not crazy. Crazy probably isn't the best framing of it, but yeah, story. That's a cool story. One quick one that comes to my mind is my kids and my wife. She was a teacher in the school system for like 5 6 years before we did the daycare. So she's again very structured, very organized. She has lesson plans for every week of the daycare, and um, so with the kids in the daycare, my kids have a hard time identifying her as teacher
Mhm.
versus mom. So like she tries to kind of hold that line. So when kids are talking over each other in a daycare, she's always like trying to, hey, excuse me, I'm talking to this kid right now. Like, give me a second, and addressing them so that they kind of have the manners to be polite and wait. That night, one of those nights, this is probably a year or so ago, my 3-year-old at the time was asked, she was calling me, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, yes. So she proceeds to talk to me and whatever she was talking to me about. And then my wife answers her for me because I think I was brushing my teeth or something. So then she turns to her and says, like, "Excuse me, mommy." Said, "Yes." "Is your name Daddy?" She's like, "No, Norris." Like, I was talking to my daddy, and proceeds to talk, and it wasn't in a rude way that would be like, "Who are you talking to?" It was more like her mimicking the what my wife does to the kids, and just like, "Hey, just by the way, just to clarify, I was talking to this person, not you." But that's one of those stories. There's so many of them that I'm sure you have too, but that's one of those stories that stick out, like of just seeing your kid grow and just have the awareness to kind of, separate and kind of put things together. Is just, it just happens overnight, and you're like, what just happened here? You don't even realize how much they know or how much they pick up and absorb, which is just mind blowing when it happens and when you see stuff. Cool. Biggest lessons you've learned, or lesson you learned having kids, or that having kids has taught you?
Well, we talked about, the schedule and being kind of strict or whatever, and my OCD, but you got to be able to be loose and you got to learn how to go with the flow, because you never know what the kid's going to throw at you. And that's probably the biggest lesson, is like, no matter what you think you know, you don't know, and you're not going to know, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
You just got to be ready for whatever they're going to throw at you, and take it in stride, and then remember, in a month or 2 months or 2 years, you're going to laugh at it, no matter what it was, no matter how bad you failed at that moment. You're going to laugh at it eventually. And the kid, my kid, he's only 3, he's not going to remember it, so who cares? you're
Right.
you're their best friend, they love you no matter what. And that's the best lesson that I've learned, is I can mess up who knows what, he's still going to love me, and to him, I'm still the best dad. And that's what being tough dad means to me, is
Mm.
just keep that at heart, and keep going.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And great advice. Couldn't have said it better. Tough Dad. You have an online store, right? And you have some merch.
Hmm.
Is that your merch that you have on right now?
Yeah, this is one of my shirts.
Oh, that's nice.
This is inspired from wrestling. I don't watch wrestling much now.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on it, but all the guys like The Rock, Stone Cold, all those guys I love, they're not really involved anymore. So I grew out of it a little bit. But there's a guy now named Roman Reigns, and he's got something called the Bloodline, Head of Table, all kinds of things I don't really understand. But he's got a shirt. It says "We the Ones." It's one of their
Mm.
taglines. And I saw it, and it's written in like tribal. I don't know if you can see it
Oh
very
yeah,
well.
yeah, it's cool.
Tribal lettering kind of thing. And I just kind of took that and put a play on it. Put dads, we the dads. Um, you know, I think it's important for dads to have a community. Of places they can see other dads doing dad things that aren't like you're talking about, all the misconceptions, trying to like put it into that and see, like, there's a lot of guys out there who are there and present with their kids, and doing that dad life the right way, and being a partner with their spouse, and co-parenting well. So that's what I'm trying to kind of put out there, and that's what a lot of my merch is about. It's like being a part of that. So yeah, it's on it's through Amazon. It's all on Amazon. You can search Tough Dad stuff and probably see most of it. But I've got links in my bio on Instagram. So it's all there too.
Yeah, that's all. And what's your Instagram for those that don't?
Tough Dad stuff,
Okay,
but it's TUFF, tough.
got it. And it'll be in the link will be in the bio or my comments, whatever they call that box in the YouTube underneath when I post the video.
Oh yeah.
It'll be there. Um, but yeah, man, cool merch. Great message. I'll say that your page is very inspiring, right? To as a fellow parent, you watch your videos and you just want to get more involved with the kids. So I think that's an awesome byproduct. And I do feel like you relate, you know, it's relatable. So it's like, I know this feeling. It's funny. Another dad is going through that feeling. So I really feel the we, the dads, just watching that. So that's a cool
Yeah.
message too,
Perfect.
to feel like we're connected. Which we are, right? And there's so many of us that are dads and that are connected, and some are involved. Some dads, some of us, if we're honest, we can be more involved. So again, I think um, that's what your page helps with, and I'm glad we ran into each other.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of your videos, and it was awesome taking some time out to have a deeper discussion. So I appreciate you being on the show again as well. Um,
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
yeah, awesome. And to close out, a couple other things that I have to throw in there is for those of you that new or are having a kid, life insurance, whole life insurance is something that you should definitely look into. You can literally get it. I think it's 10 days after the kid's born. And with life insurance, you get that early and it's cheap. You can get a lot of coverage for cheap and have that out of the way. Also, a custodial account. You can create a custodial account with a broker, and that's basically just an investment account that you can put dollars into for your kid that you manage, and then you can turn over to your kid and when they get older and use it for college and any other thing. So check that out. Also, we tend to collect birthday money, and then we put it into the custodial account for the kids for them to grow. But just two other quick plugs while we're on the topic of talking about kids and being a parent. Again, thanks again, Tough Dad, Jonathan, John. I should say, you said people that call you Jonathan, you know that off the bat they don't really know you. So,
Oh, if they call me Jonathan, that means I'm in trouble.
oh, then you're in trouble. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks again for being on the show, John. Look forward to talking to you more on the side, and again, kudos and shout out to everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. That said, that's a wrap. Do me a favor, like, tap, like, share, subscribe, and come back. Peace.